Hello, this is Adam again, and we're back with another video for ranking of my top 15 Agatha Christie novels and short stories. So today we're up to novel number 10. And for novel number 10, I have chosen one right from Agatha Christie's prime period when she was at her peak of her writing powers in the 1930s. And this one is called Three-Act Tragedy. This is the first video I've made where I've talked about Hercule Poirot novel, which in itself probably is a little bit unusual because most of Agatha Christie's stories were Hercule Poirot mysteries. But here we are at video number 10, and this is the first time that I'm mentioning a detective story that involves Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie's most famous creation. It will not be the last time that we're discussing Hercule Poirot. So Three-Act Tragedy is a book that probably if you are an Agatha Christie aficionado, if you are an Agatha Christie fan, this may not be a story that you know. Or if you have read much Agatha Christie, this may be a story that is ranked a little bit lower on your list if you have decided which ones are your favorites as you're playing along, as you're watching the rest of my videos. And by the way, this is a good time to mention that it would be great if you would like this video, that you would subscribe, and that you would ask me some questions or give me some commentary down below, so then we can continue to grow this channel and get more viewers to enjoying this content. But what I was getting at is this is a book that I'm probably ranking higher than most Agatha Christie fans would. Three-Act Tragedy is not one of her more well-known stories, and some people who I've seen who do these Agatha Christie rankings have this one pretty low. But I really, really like this one. Part of the reason that I like this one is I believe that it is a very well-constructed murder plot. So there are three people in this story who are eventually murdered, and I like the setup of how the first two murders especially are very similar, and just the idea of trying to solve one of the things that Poirot has to do in this story is he has to solve how the two murders are linked to each other, because apparently it just doesn't look like they are. There doesn't seem to be, other than the fact that there's the same people are coming together, and both of the murders are at a dinner party, and the people who are at the dinner party are, for the most part, largely the same, with some important people missing. But the murders don't seem to have any connection to each other, other than the fact that they are both done kind of in the same setting and also using the same method. But we'll get to that. Again, the Three-Act Tragedy is written during her prime period in the 1930s when she's at the peak of her powers. Most of her best stories, I believe, were written in the 30s and in the 40s. And so this is prime Agatha Christie. So let's get straight into what happens. So the first person that I need to tell you about is a man named Charles Cartwright. He is a famous actor, stage actor, who has retired, but has made a great living with his acting career. Charles Cartwright decided to retire, but because acting is in his blood, he just continues to take on these roles. And currently he is playing the role of, and when I say he's playing a role, it's just he's so used to acting that he just continues to act in his everyday life when he's around his friends, and when he's just going around in public, he's continuing to just act, even though he's acting in a play that doesn't exist. And so this is why the book is called, one of the reasons why this book is called Three-Act Tragedy, is it's kind of poking fun at people who are, well, in examining maybe, kind of just wrapped up with that theme or that idea of the theater and people's lives in the theater. And I'll get more into this as we talk a little bit more. But back to Sir Charles Cartwright. So he's playing the role right now of a retired sea captain. So he's a retired actor. He dresses the part of a retired sea captain. He's decorated his house in the manner that a sea captain might decorate his house. And so this is the role that he's playing. Now he's got a very close friend whose name is Bartholomew Strange, a famous doctor, a nerve doctor, considered very intelligent, and a leading doctor in the community and throughout all of England, actually. So Bartholomew Strange is Sir Charles Cartwright's good friend, and he's been surprised that Sir Charles has been able to play this role of retired sea captain for quite a while now. Going on over 2 years, this has been the role Charles Cartwright has been playing. And Bartholomew Strange, his good friend, is surprised that it's lasted this long. He thought he would have maybe done this for 6 months and then moved on to playing a different role, maybe big game hunter or something like that. But that's what Charles Cartwright is doing. Now, they're gathered at Charles Cartwright's house for a dinner party. And this is the cast that comes in to Agatha Christie's story here, who are the possible murder suspects. And so let me just run down some of these people who are at this dinner party and who are then going to become the people who we are thinking are the murder suspects. So we start with Hercule Poirot. Now we know, of course, that he's not going to be suspected of murder, but he is the famous Belgian detective who is also a good friend of Charles Cartwright, and he is at the dinner party, very conveniently, of course. There is a very famous actress who is also retired. Her name is Angela Sutcliffe. So we get another person who is a former actress, and she's a little bit older, and but she's still considered, pretty popular in the community for the fact that she was once a famous actress, even though she's kind of, she's getting a little bit older, so maybe she's losing her ability to get some of the leading lady roles that she used to get. There is a lady named Cynthia Dacres and her husband Freddie Dacres at the dinner party. Cynthia Dacres is a very stylish. She owns a dressmaking shop in London. It's called Ambrosine Limited, and so she is considered, the height of London fashion, and so she is an important person to come to for looking your best and being up to date and stylish. She has kind of a habit of overusing buzzwords maybe to make herself appear more intelligent or more fashionable than she really is. And one of the things that she says is she when she's commenting on people's looks, she'll say her dress style was just penetrating. Her manner of look was penetrating, so everything is just penetrating. And so Cynthia Dacres is this dressmaker who's very well established in the community. Her husband Freddie is a little bit of a wastrel. He is a man who just kind of is determined to drink his wife's fortune to pieces. So he goes to the horse races during the day, and he kind of just lounges around and drinks, and he just goes through his wife's money. And so that's Freddie Dacres, and both of them are at the dinner party. Then we have Muriel Willis. She is a playwright, so she writes plays under the name of Anthony Astor. And so and it's interesting is that she's described in the story as being a very good playwright and creating these exciting characters, but herself, she's kind of frumpy and a little bit of an introvert. So she doesn't live up to herself doesn't live up to her reputation as creating these interesting stories or plays that people like to go to. Also at the dinner party, we have Reverend Stephen Babington, who happens to be kind of a neighbor and a friend of Charles Cartwright, and with Reverend Babington is his wife Margaret. And so Margaret's interested in gardening, and she and Charles Cartwright are talking during the party. Early in the party, they're talking about, the effectiveness of using manure as a fertilizer, because Charles Cartwright has a lot more time to garden now than he used to in the past. And so he's asking Margaret about some of her preferred tips. Also at the party, we have Lady Mary Gore and her young daughter. And when I say young, I don't mean super young. I mean, she's around 20, so an adult, but a young adult. And her name is Hermione Light. The daughter's name is Hermione Lytton Gore, and she goes by the nickname Egg, which she's called throughout most of the story. And as it turns out, we see that Egg is very close to Charles Cartwright. In fact, she's kind of trying to decide in her life. She's kind of at that point where she's spending a lot of time with Charles Cartwright, getting to know Charles Cartwright. But since he's much older than her, she's also thinking, maybe I should, have a romantic relationship with somebody closer to my age. And so there's a man named Oliver Manders, who is a friend of Hermione, of Egg, and they've been friends growing up. But he's kind of Oliver Manders is somebody who has kind of fallen in with, the socialists or the communists. So he has these socialist or communist ideas. In fact, it's revealed in the story that Oliver Manders once confronted Reverend Stephen Babington, and he told him that he doesn't have a lot of respect for the church because the church is full of hypocrites. And so if he could just get rid of all the hypocrites in the church, the world would be much better off. And so Reverend Babington, was kind of taken aback by this, but he responded in a very kind way to Oliver Manders and said, even if the hypocrites were removed from the church, you would still have to deal with the issue of God and God's place in our life. And also at the dinner party are, let's see, who did I leave out? Also, there's Jane Milray, who is Charles Cartwright's. She's kind of like his secretary and his companion that takes care of all the things that Charles Cartwright needs taken care of in his household. And it's hinted at in the story that that Jane Milray has a crush on her boss, that she is in love with Charles Cartwright. And when Charles Cartwright hears these rumors, he kind of startled by this, because he thinks that Jane Milray she's very efficient, she's very good at her job, but it's impossible to think of her in a romantic way because Charles Cartwright considers her to be kind of an unattractive lady. And Charles Cartwright, even though he's an older actor, he's considered to be very, very handsome, and so that plays a key part in the story. So they're having their dinner party, and then all of a sudden drinks are passed around, and the Reverend Stephen Babington drops dead on the floor. So this is the first murder. And so when the police are called and the doctors show up and they look at him, it seems like this is just a death that's caused by natural causes. But after the dinner party is over, Charles Cartwright and Bartholomew Strange and Hercule Poirot are gathered together. They're discussing the death of the Reverend Babington, and Charles Cartwright says, well, maybe it wasn't natural causes. Maybe somebody murdered him. What about that? And so he's curious about that. Dr. Strange thinks that no, this probably couldn't happen. He's just who would want to kill a minister? He's very well respected in the community. He's a very nice guy, and so who would want to murder a reverend? And there seems to be no answer to that. And the doctors who are investigating the death on the scene, they say that he just died of natural causes. So a couple of months pass, and nobody thinks much more about this. In fact, Charles is on. And one of the other people I forgot to mention in the story is Mr. Satterthwaite. Mr. Satterthwaite is a very close friend of Charles Cartwright. He's a wealthy man who is an observer of human nature, and he just likes to sit back and he likes to observe other people, especially women. It's mentioned in the book, and that he just likes to observe them and watch them. And he's an elderly gentleman. He's wealthy, and he's never been married, so he just likes to observe other people. And so, but he's a good friend of Charles Cartwright. And they go on vacation to Monte Carlo, and it just so happens they happen to bump into Hercule Poirot while they're down there. And Charles Cartwright is reading the newspaper one day, and he discovers that there has been a second murder at a dinner party. And this time, the murder has happened in the exact same way. So they were having cocktails, and this time it is Bartholomew Strange, who is Charles Cartwright's good friend, who has died and he was hosting a dinner party. Well, all the same people who were at the first party, with the exception of Mr. Satterthwaite, Hercule Poirot, and Charles Cartwright, with the exception of those three people, everybody else who was at the first dinner party, and of course, Reverend Stephen Babington, who is dead, and Mr. Babington's wife wasn't there either, I don't think. And so they were at the second dinner party, and the same thing happened, where they were having drinks after dinner, and this time Bartholomew Strange was drinking, and he died. So we have a second murder. Now this time, since it was so similar to the way that the first murder took place, or the first death took place, which we will later find out indeed was a murder, people are very, very suspicious this time. And in fact, Egg, I'm going to call her Egg instead of calling her Hermione, since in the story she's called Egg. Egg writes a letter to Charles in Monte Carlo saying this: "Dear Sir Charles, I don't know when this will get to you. I do hope soon. I'm so worried. I don't know what to do. You'll have seen, I expect, in the papers that Sir Bartholomew Strange is dead. Well, he died just the same way as Mr. Babington. It can't be a coincidence. It can't. It can't. I'm worried to death. Look here, can you come home and do something? It sounds a bit crude put like that, but you did have suspicions before, and nobody would listen to you. And now it's your own friend who's been killed. And perhaps if you don't come back, nobody will ever find out the truth. And I'm so sure that you could. I feel it in my bones. And there's something else I'm worried, definitely, about someone. He had absolutely nothing to do with it. I know that, but things might look a bit odd. Oh, I can't explain in a letter. But won't you come back? You could find out the truth. I know you could. Yours in haste, Egg. And so then Sir Charles and Mr. Satterthwaite do go back to London, or to go back to England. The setting is actually a place called Loomuth, which is out in the countryside. I believe it's supposed to be over in the Cornwall region of England, so it's not that close to London. But they go back, and Sir Charles does start investigating along with Mr. Satterthwaite, his friend, and along with Egg. The three of them actually become amateur sleuths, and they start doing detecting during the story. This is a little bit of an unusual aspect into this story. So Hercule Poirot is actually kind of in the background of this story for a long time, of course, until the end, because he's going to be the one who solves the murder, of course, like he always does. But he kind of sits back, and he allows these three other people to do the investigations. Now, Mr. Satterthwaite, I need to say, we've seen him before. If we've been reading all of Agatha Christie's books in chronological order, he was actually in the stories that had to do, that were called The Mysterious Mr. Quinn, that had involved a detective named Harley Quinn. Mr. Satterthwaite was in those stories as well, and he was the one that solved those murders or those mysteries along with Harley Quinn. And so we've seen him before, but in this situation, he doesn't interact with Harley Quinn at all. But he is a friend of Charles Cartwright, and the three of them, along with Egg, are investigating the murders. And so they go out and they find evidence, and they interview people, and they talk to people. This is a really unusual way to construct the story, with Poirot kind of in the background, not doing too much, and having these other three people playing the role that would usually be played by Hercule Poirot. But I kind of liked it. You get to know Charles Cartwright, you get to know Egg a little bit more, you get to know Mr. Satterthwaite, and they each have different ways of finding out information. So, for instance, Egg goes and talks to Cynthia Dacres at her dress shop, and she tries to, she pretends that she's looking to buy dresses so she can get Cynthia Dacres to kind of relax and maybe give away some information that she might not otherwise have. We see Mr. Satterthwaite, he's going to hospitals around and talking to people that knew Dr. Strange. And we see Charles Cartwright, because of his celebrity, people know who he is. He's able to talk to the police and get information out of the police that the police might not otherwise reveal to just, ordinary people. And so it's kind of it has an unusual structure where you get a chance to see a different side of the story. In some ways, I really like Egg as a character. In some of the ways, she's kind of like some of the other female Agatha Christie characters that she's written, like Eileen Bundle Brent, Frankie Derwent, and Why Didn't They Ask Evans comes to mind. Emily Trefusis in The Sitterford Mystery. So Egg is kind of like those other female characters who appeared in Agatha Christie stories before. And so, and she's kind of in that, she's falling in love with Sir Charles as they're investigating the case together, but she also has loyalty to Oliver Manders, because in the letter that I read to you, she referred to Oliver Manders being one of the chief suspects in the story. When he came to Dr. Strange's party, he had crashed his motorcycle. He wasn't invited to Dr. Strange's party. He had crashed his motorcycle outside of Dr. Strange's house during the party and then was invited in. And it seemed kind of suspicious that he was there. And so Egg's kind of torn between, should I be protecting Oliver, who's my friend, and, I've known for all my life, and, is very handsome, or should I, she's wondering if she should allow herself to fall in love with Sir Charles Cartwright. And as we get closer to the end of the story, eventually she does fall in love with Sir Charles Cartwright. So that's the setup for the story. I'm not going to go too much further than that because I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a really good story, and I really like just the way that the two first murders are kind of parallel to each other, and what's the connection between them? Why would somebody want to kill an innocent reverend? what connection does that have to the death of Dr. Bartholomew Strange? And so I really like this story, and one of the other reasons I like it too is I think the BBC, when they were making I guess it was Acorn, when they were making the Hercule Poirot movies with David Suchet playing Hercule Poirot, they did a really good adaptation of this, and especially the Charles Cartwright character was really well done, and the person who played Egg, she did a really good job being Egg, and she was a very attractive. She was a very attractive actress, and so you could see why the men would be kind of interested in getting to know her a little bit more. So that is 3-Act Tragedy, my 10th favorite Agatha Christie story. And give me some comments. Let me know what you think of 3-Act Tragedy. Did you enjoy it too? Am I overrating it? Is it underrated? Have you read it? What did you think of it? One of the criticisms that it does get in the story is that some of the minor characters aren't very well developed, and so you never really figure that they're going to be the person who is the murderer. So she doesn't do a great job in this story of developing some of the minor characters, and so there's not a whole lot to do with them. And so that's one of the criticisms that I've seen about 3-Act Tragedy. That's why it's not as highly thought of as some of her other stories. Okay, I hope you're all having a good day, and I will talk to you soon where we'll find out what my 9th favorite Agatha Christie story is.